So I want to talk about today why I think the Frag token is going to continue to do very, very well over the next several months and probably the next year or two. First of all, if you don't know what the Frag token is, it is a deflationary token. It's a TRC20 token built on the Tron network. Every single time the token is bought or sold, there's 1% burned. And over time, the idea is decrease the supply, ultimately increases demand, which will ultimately increase the price. That is the fundamental idea behind the Frag token. And I want to make sure we're running. And I think it's going to do really, really well. And there's several main reasons. First of all, there's a very active dev. The dev goes by Hank. If you come to Telegram, you can. He's very active in there. If you got questions, I asked him a question yesterday, and he got back to me. The community is very active. All that's really good for any project. But the fact that the dev is actively developing, and he really has a good leadership head on his shoulders. He doesn't appear to, like, if people ask questions that can appear skeptical, he just answers the questions. He doesn't get overly defensive of his project. I mean, the guy really has a level of maturity that you don't always see on every project lead, unfortunately, but he does really, really well. He has a great attitude, and he knows how to develop. So it's a deflationary token. He's creating dApps actively. There's 2 more dApps, I believe, on the timeline coming out. One's a game, and one is the second version of this game, Frag Goo. I heard about an update to this dApp, Frag Power, and then there's also another one, Frag Sweeper, or like Minesweeper, which is a typical game. So he's actively developing, which is really, really good, but those aren't even the best reasons. I'm going to get to the best reasons, and as I continue in this video, I'm going to talk about how I'm using Frag personally. Not financial advice, but I am investing in the Frag token, and I'll discuss that a little bit later in the video, so stay tuned for that. So here's the other thing. The other interesting thing about Frag, which is a new development that just came out, is Frag just got accepted on the Void exchange. Now, Void is also a deflationary token, and I forget, Void has a different burn mechanism, meaning a different amount, but it's also a TRC20. The dApp that Void is going is they're going after creating a decentralized exchange. So right now they have Void versus TRX, Void versus BTT, Void versus Frag. In theory, this could ideally be a much larger use case, but I think it has a lot further to go to prove itself out, although it's a very good idea for a deflationary token to be the main token on an exchange. Shout out to Void. I own some Void. I'm holding them. I'm not trying to get rid of them. So that's all really, really good. But Frag just got added to Void. Now, here's what that means. People who own Void, and I was considering it because I really like the Frag token. People who own Void can sell their Frag, 0.45 Frag to get 1 Void, or buy Void. That's at the launch price. It hasn't launched yet. This launches on the 16th, which is tomorrow, I believe. Yep, tomorrow. So this will launch on the 16th. But you can, every time people exchange, they're going to be basically burning a small percentage, 1% of this token, and 2 or 3% of this token gets burned on every exchange, which is fascinating. That's very good for those of us that are holding Frag, which I am. And I have a unique way to invest in Frag, so I'll talk about that in a moment. So the idea is the supply is going to decrease. Here's the fundamental thing. The supply is going to decrease. They're operating on the Tron blockchain. That's going in their favor. They have a very active developer. That's going in their favor. The developer's active in Telegram. There's a loyal community. All that's really good. And I'm telling you, people are sleeping on Frag. I am shocked how few people are in this token. But then the method that I use specifically, and I've talked about this before, is Frag bonds. Now, this article really explains Frag bonds better than I could. So I'm going to go through this article very, very quickly. But here's the thing. What are bonds? So Frag's latest dApp, now this is back in August when this first came out, and the idea that it came out in August and it is still running very, very strong is huge, huge. So Frag's latest dApp brings bonds to the Tron network. They're designed as an incentive to dApp players and are awarded to users whilst they play, otherwise known as mining. Once acquired, bonds can be frozen or deposited into the Frag bond pool and will mature back into Frags at 1-to-1. So think about that. People mine the Frag bonds on the dApps. Many of you are familiar with tokens that you can mine, like the BFG token or whatever on other dApps. So they mine the tokens. They can put those tokens into the bond pool, and then they get mature for 1 Frag per token. Bonds mature as the pool receives Frag profits from other dApps, such as DICE. So the profits from the other dApps goes towards bonds. and it will show up like this. This will show you how many frags. So in this case, they show a screenshot of 112 bonds. Sorry, these 60 frag will once at once a day that you'll see a button come in that says claim. When you claim those 60 frag, you'll also lose 60 frozen bonds. But you can earn frag at a rate of about 0.5 or less when you're mining. So think about that, 0.5 or less. So basically, when at maturity, you're making 100% ROI at maturity of the bond. That's crazy. So for example, players who play frag dice will receive 3 bonds for every 100 frag wagered. Double the house edge, 1.5%, which means once at least half of their bonds mature, the average luck player will be in net frag profit playing dice. Bonds have no expiration, so players can reasonably expect them to mature back into frags over time as Dapp volume keeps steady momentum due to the increased adoption, rewards, and the number of frag Dapps. That is enormous. You might need to pause the video and reread that yourself. So there he says basically you're going to make a 100% return once the bonds you get mature. But once they mature, they're gone. Now that's the key right there. That prevents you from ever getting diluted. So I'm going to cover that in a minute. Like, why don't you get diluted? Why are the earnings so high? Because in theory, the earnings, even in this ecosystem, the earnings don't have to be as high as they are. They're high. They're like as high as 1% a day. All right, let's keep going. How bonds improve on other token mining, such as Ante and 888. The main innovative bonds provide is the one-to-one relation to frags. And I got to tell you something. This is so incredible to me that I'm like, I wouldn't even want to play on Ante, 888, BetFury, none of those. The main innovation bonds provide is their one-to-one relation to frags. This prevents the mining div pool from being diluted from early miners, which usually makes new players more cautious to play. Bonds, on the other hand, disappear as they mature into frags, so the div pool remains undiluted. Keeping the bonds churning provides a positive feedback loop to players, and in turn keeps them wanting to mine more profit. Finally, since the underlying asset frags are capped and deflationary, this means increasing Dapp volume also increases the amount burnt, which is another net positive for the players. That is amazing. So that's the whole game theory right here. I want to reread that. The main innovation bonds provide is their one-to-one relation to frags. This prevents the mining div pool from being diluted. This right here is the number one issue in every single Dapp, period. End of story. That's the number one issue in every Dapp. From bonds, on the other hand, disappear as they mature back into frags. So the div pool remains undiluted. So when you get bonds, you don't own them forever. Once they mature, they're gone. But that prevents everybody from getting diluted. Keeping the bonds churning provides a positive feedback loop to players and in turn keeps them wanting to mine more profit. Finally, since the underlying asset frags are capped and deflationary, this means increasing Dapp volume also increases more burnt frag. Okay, so here's the thing that you want to understand, just to show you quickly. So here's the thing. I've just added frag, particularly frag bonds, to my crypto passive profit strategy course that I'm putting together. This is the third. There's 3 main. Cryptotab is the main focus, the web browser. There's 2. There's another one that's primarily a passive Bitcoin earner that's really stable. That's has no reason to think that it's going anywhere. But before I add anything, I want it to be stable. And I thought about not adding frag because for someone who's brand new, trying to go from say Bitcoin, for example, to TRX to frag, it may take a learning curve. So I'm working on putting some videos together for that. But this thing is nuts at the earning potential. So at 76 frag or 77 frag, I'm at 1% per day earning. Think about that. However, even at right now, I'm over 0.5% a day. But here's the number one reason that I think frag bonds can work so well as an income stream. It's not like you just buy it and hold it. It's an income stream. Or a crypto stream, I should say. The reason it can work so well, crypto stream, that's the new word. The reason it can work so well as a crypto stream is because in this space primarily is made up of young people between 20 to 35. That is awesome for anyone that has just a tiny bit of patience because most people in the millennial category have zero patience in crypto. They hop and they hop, they jump, they jump. They follow the herd. They try to get in front of the herd. They're trying to become day traders. Hodling cryptocurrency and making 20% a year on gains is, just not sexy enough. And, they're impatient. And truthfully, most of them are just losing everything in most cases. And it's great for a deflationary token that they hop in and out. That's awesome. That's awesome. It's in my opinion, a huge reason to be in a deflationary token, just because the demographics of the current players in this space, or the current participants in this space. So you combine that with the fact that we have a millennial market playing the various dApps on here. The FOMO Dapp, the Frag Dapp, and Raffle, and bonds and dice. All those I know feed bonds. Feed bonds. So here's the thing: when you consider the fact that they're probably mining bonds and they're like, oh, getting less than 1%, getting less than 0.5%. I mean, I've actually seen comments where people are like, oh, you can only make 0.2% a day. Like, there's not anything in the world long term that can earn you 0.2% a day. In fact, frag bonds, I mean, as long as people keep playing it, it's going to keep going. But I don't think most millennial types are willing to hold this thing much below 0.5% a day. So what happens is they stop mining. And the big one is they stop reinvesting as their frags mature. There'll always be players as long as it's being promoted and people are talking about it. There'll always be a small amount of players, but as these frags mature, the impatient hands stop mining. They stop playing the dApps, and then that means the rest of us that are holding the frag, our daily percent goes up. It's insane. Like, it's insane to think about, because you don't even have to mine to go from being diluted to no longer being diluted, as long as other people are playing. That's just crazy. That's just crazy. And if people get impatient, they can cash out over here on the trade bonds, which is awesome. It's not the best way to buy bonds. You actually pay way more than 0.5%. It's not. I wouldn't recommend necessarily buying, but you can. If people get impatient, they can cash out. So it's still liquid. Your mineable token is always sellable. That's not always possible on other platforms ever. So I think FragToken is incredible. I think Frag Bonds is incredible. I think this is by far one of the most underrated dApps currently in the ecosystem. Tell me what you think with your comments down below. Be sure to subscribe to the Crypto Passive Profit Strategy newsletter if you haven't already. I should call it the Crypto Passive course, but be sure to subscribe to that newsletter. Also, because the course is coming out soon. Also, be sure to hit that subscribe button, hit the bell notification icon, and let me know down in the comments. What are your thoughts on Frag? And for that matter, what are your thoughts on Void? Talk to you soon.